Hello, welcome to What Are Sports? This is a show that will teach you all about your favorite sports and even some you might not know exist. Today, we're talking about Rugby Union. Rugby Union is one of the most popular forms of football. Originating back in 1823, it has quickly grown to be one of the most played sports all over the world. Let's find out how it works. Rugby football is said to have been invented in 1823 by a schoolboy, William Webb Ellis, at Rugby School in Rugby, Warwickshire. I wonder where they got the name from. The story, which is mostly hearsay and widely disputed, goes that during a football game, William caught the ball in the air, which was not a foul by their rules. However, instead of running the ball back, punching it, or putting it down immediately, William ran forward with the ball. It was this simple infraction that spurred the creation of rugby football. Boys at the rugby school continued with this style of play and in 1845 wrote up their own set of rules for the game. Throughout the 1860s, rugby clubs began to form throughout the British Midlands, the north of England, and Scotland. In 1871, the first governing organisation was formed, called the Rugby Football Union. Later that year, the first ever international rugby game was played between England and Scotland. Scotland won the game, 2 tries and a goal to England's 1 try. Throughout the 1870s and 80s, the game spread worldwide, reaching European nations and even internationally to places such as Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Following disputes about professionalism in the sport, there was a split between many Northern English clubs and the rest of the Union in the early 1890s. These Northern clubs decided to alter aspects of the game as well, resulting in the sport we now know as Rugby League. Rugby Union was included in the 1900 Olympics and continued to be played in the Games until 1924. Rugby was omitted afterwards due to not enough countries fielding teams for the Games. But make sure you watch the TV this summer, as rugby is making a return to the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro in the form of Rugby Sevens. The first Rugby Union World Cup was held in 1987 in New Zealand and Australia. The New Zealand All Blacks won the tournament, making them the first official world champions of Rugby Union. The most recent World Cup was held in 2015 in England. The All Blacks also won that tournament, making them 3-time world champions, with their second victory being in 2011. Rugby is a pretty simple game to play. All you really need is a rugby ball. A rugby ball is 1 foot in length and 2 feet in circumference around the middle. Nowadays, rugby balls are made out of a synthetic material with an inner rubber lining. Rugby balls are shaped this way, partially due to their origins when they used to make them out of pig's bladder. Isn't that gross? They then switched to leather, but they didn't work too well in wet conditions, so now they use a synthetic material. Rugby balls are also pretty bouncy, which plays an important role in the game. Good catch. Rugby players wear special boots with molded or metal studs on the bottom. The studs go into the ground so they get more purchase and don't fall over. You can see markings on the mud today where players have stood before. Players should also wear a mouth guard so as to help prevent them from injury. Sorry, I said players should also wear a mouth guard so as to help prevent against injury. Rugby is a full contact sport, so concussions and injuries aren't unusual. That about does it for the equipment. Let's move on to the playing field. A rugby field should be between 94 and 100 meters in length, with an in-goal area between 10 and 22 meters on either end. The field should also be between 68 and 70 meters wide. The boundaries on either side of the pitch are called the touch lines, and the boundaries on either end of the pitch are called the dead ball lines. There are several marked areas on a rugby pitch. The halfway line is drawn, as you might have guessed, halfway down the field. 10 meters on each side of the halfway line are dashed lines called the 10-meter lines. The goal lines are drawn between 47 and 50 meters away from the halfway line, depending on the field. 22 meters in play from the goal line is drawn the 22-meter line. They call the area in between the 22. Dash lines run up the field at 15 meters and 5 meters from the touch line on both sides. Finally, 5 meters from the goal line, a dash line is drawn. Okay, now on to the goalposts. The goalposts are placed 5.6 meters away from each other exactly, on the center of the goal line. The crossbar runs between them at a height of 3 meters. There isn't a set height for the goalposts, but the official rulebook states they must be higher than 3.4 meters. That about does it for field regulations. Let's move on to playing the game. Rugby is a very fast-moving game, with lots of running, passing, kicking, and hitting. 15 players from each team take the field. The game is started with a kickoff. One team punts the ball and both try to recover it. When one man possesses the ball, he may try to run with it. This is when the other team will try to tackle him to the ground. To avoid being hit, the player with the ball may run it, pass it, or kick it. The most fundamental rule in rugby is that when passing the ball, you may not pass it forward. You must pass it sideways or backwards. If the ball carrier does get tackled, he must release the ball immediately. This usually means placing the ball on the ground behind him, where a teammate can pick it up. The tackler must let go of and move away from the ball carrier as soon as they hit the ground. Any player may pick up the ball, however, it is a foul for an opposing player to stand over a player on the ground. The aim of the game is to score the most points, like most games. Scoring can be done several ways in rugby. The first way is to score a try. A try happens when a player touches the ball to ground in the other team's in-goal area. A try is worth 5 points. Once a player has scored, his team is given a chance to score conversion. This means that a player must kick the ball through the goalpost within 1.5 minutes from when the try was scored. A conversion is worth 2 points. A player may also try to kick it through the goalpost at any point in general play, which will award his team 3 points. Finally, penalty kicks are given out after certain fouls. They are also worth 3 points. When the ball goes into touch, that means out of bounds, the players conduct what is called a line-out. The way this works is one player stands on the touchline and throws the ball into play. The two teams line up at least 5 meters away from the touchline. One player from each team may stand at least 2 meters away from each line to catch the ball after the throw-in, and all the other players must stand at least 10 meters behind. The player in touch throws the ball into the air in between the two lines. Each team lifts the player high into the air to try to catch the ball. If one lifted player does catch the ball, he will pass it to the player standing 2 meters away, who will then run the ball. After certain fouls, play resumes with a scrum, one of the most well-known parts of rugby. A scrum consists of 8 players from each team locking together to fight for the ball. The 8 players form 3 rows, 3 in the front, 2 in the middle, and 1 behind. They stand shoulder to shoulder and hold on to each other. The two teams then interlock so that no teammates' heads are next to each other. Once this has been done safely, the referee will signal for a player to roll the ball into the middle of the tunnel created. Then the player in the center of the line, known as the hooker, will try to kick the ball backwards to his player, known as the scrum half, to pick it up. The other players in the scrum try to push the other team back so that they may get the ball more easily. Scrums can be very dangerous, so lifting the other players or collapsing the scrum is a foul. If the ball rolls out of the side of the scrum, it must be rolled back in. So first, hold the ball upright. With a drop kick, you want to plant one foot and then drop the ball next to or slightly in front of that planted foot. Then your other foot will swing through to kick the ball right after it bounces. Keep your kicking foot pointed downwards so you connect with the flat part of your foot to send the ball where you want it to. Timing the kick and getting the ball to go where you want it to will be a challenge, so keep practicing and don't give up. Let's show Kyan how to throw a rugby ball. Remember, ball in both hands, one behind the other, and then just push it against. Just like that. That's great. But remember, in rugby, you're not allowed to throw forwards, only sideways or backwards. Let's go down the field a little, and we'll throw back to each other each time. Ready? Well, that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'm Christian O'Brien, and this has been What Are Sports? See you next time.